Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another episode. This episode is brought to you by me. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, for listening in every week. I'm so appreciative. As always, you know I love you. Today we're talking CRPS and MALS. CRPS and MALS. At least the second one has something that you can pronounce, but CRPS is a little odd to go around saying. So CRPS and MALS. CRPS is complex regional pain syndrome, and MALS or MALS is median arcuate ligament syndrome, which is where there's a compression of the celiac artery and can cause long-term chronic stomach pain. And it was really interesting listening to Shannon described that the MALS was the most painful for her, and really exciting to hear that she's going into a surgery in the next few weeks to try to alleviate the pain. And I can't wait for you to hear her journey through discovery to diagnosis to eventual chronic illness and hopeful recovery. So enjoy this episode of Shannon living with CRPS and MALS. Let's be real. People love to gloss over chronic conditions or disabilities with a fleeting comment like, just be positive, or a fleeting insult like, kale will cure you. This is a podcast for when you face a different reality, knowing that positivity isn't a magic wand that's going to cure everything, but a flashlight in the dark that we may or may not have batteries to. Living with a chronic illness or disability makes you feel different, and your difference could be noticeable to others or not, but either can sometimes make you feel invisible. I'm here to tell you that your experience is valid and shared by others in the dark. Positivity is not the missing puzzle piece that's going to solve your life's puzzle, but it can be a beautiful tool that can help you grow. And sharing those experiences can make us grow together. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, I'm excited. I actually found out about your podcast through Mazzy. And that's how I had kind of heard about it. So I reached out and I'm glad it worked out.
Tell me about who you are and a little bit about like your relationship to chronic illness.
Yeah, so my name is Shannon. I am 19 years old. So about 3 years ago, most of this day, I was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome. So it started after I had a couple ankle sprains, got a really bad case of tendonitis, and we kind of did everything. Like, I mean, everything to make it better. And it kind of dawned on me, I was like, okay, tendonitis isn't like, tendonitis shouldn't be this bad and shouldn't be untreatable by everything in months of every treatment under the sun. Something isn't right. And we kind of kept following up with different doctors. And finally, my orthopedic doctor, he said, listen, I think, maybe if you immobilize it, make you non-weight bearing for a couple of weeks, maybe kind of resting it might kind of give it a chance to heal on its own. And, it's like, okay, that point I was kind of desperate. But even though it was non-weight bearing, everything, I still had this really bad pain. I said, this isn't tendonitis because that doesn't make sense. So we kind of just went with it. And when we had a follow-up, I said, doc, like, it's worse. I said, I feel like someone like lit my foot on fire. And he said, okay, by that point I had gone to multiple physical therapists, and one of them had said, I think you have complex regional pain syndrome. And so we went back to the ortho doctor, and he said, he's right. He said, you shouldn't be having, he said, you have the telltale signs, you have this elevated response from an injury that's not getting better. You have this burning pain. You have this allodynia. So at that point, I couldn't really wear socks. I hated taking a shower because it was just so painful. I would wait until the very last second before we pulled up into school to put my like socks and shoes on. Like the people we carpool with must have thought I was like absolutely crazy. And it was kind of like, okay, what now? We have this kind of daunting, incurable diagnosis. And around that time, I had also lost all my friends at school because, I wasn't able to do anything. And they didn't really understand why. Right. And it kind of became this situation where, how about we go to the mall and walk around? not gonna work. We go ice skating, it's not gonna work either. We could go skiing, not gonna work either. And it was a very, very isolating time because I was kind of adjusting to this living with daily chronic pain and kind of feeling this life that I knew just kind of slip away. And the pain was spreading throughout my body. So I was like, okay, now my whole body feels like it's on fire. What's next? So I entered a 3-week pain rehab program. It's really great. It was kind of an interesting experience. Kind of meeting other people who had experienced the same thing. And honestly, I think that was probably one of the most powerful moments of my whole journey. Was sitting down on the very first day at this pain program. We were at Cleveland Clinic. And we were all, it was all kids my age. There was about 10 of us, maybe something like that. We're all sitting at this table, and we're like, okay, so why are you here? And I remember we all went around, and no one knew complex regional pain syndrome. Where I'm from, no, none of my friends understood it. It was just kind of this rare thing that I thought I was the only one that I had. And I remember the first girl said, "I'm here for CRPS," and it kind of dawned on me this moment. I was like, I'm not the only one with this. I'm not the only one my age who kind of deals with this diagnosis and struggling to wear socks and all these things that are normal people things. So it's just a really powerful moment. It really taught me that you're never really the only one going through what you're going through. Because so kind of from there, we tried different things. For a couple years, we tried to get the CRPS under control. And over the years, I kind of developed some other issues, began having some really scary allergic reactions to a lot of different triggers, be it foods. And I'd be like, Mom, I can't breathe whenever I eat this or whatever. So we kind of have figured out that I most likely mast cell activation syndrome is the cause. So I do carry an EpiPen 24/7. I have to be really careful, around fragrances, around, different medications. I'd be really careful. And kind of everywhere I go, I have to say, I'm an anaphylaxis risk. So,
Wow.
be careful because you never know. You never know. It's like a bomb waiting to go off.
That's so crazy.
It is crazy. I think that honestly is probably, sometimes I think if I could get rid of one thing, I think that would be it because I'm always like, I was talking, I was like, I always freak out when I have these allergic reactions. Like, how could I not freak out? And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I was talking to people, I'm like, okay, you're supposed to freak out. That's like nature's response, when you can't breathe or when, you have this kind of really scary thing going on. So it
Yeah.
surely doesn't help, keep the body calm, but we deal one day at a time.
So you were just eating, what kind of specific foods were you eating that were giving you these reactions?
So first it was gluten and dairy, and so I cut those out, and then it kind of became eggs, and it became, and it was kind of one of those things you didn't even react to the same things every day. It was really kind of scary because you never knew, so it kind of cut out a lot of those foods that are really histamine releasing, and um, kind of just always had Zyrtec on me, and we've
Did
done
that
well so
help,
far.
the Zyrtec?
Yeah, it does. It's kind of one of those things that you can never fully, because the thing with mast cell release is that it's kind of like, once you put 'em all those chemicals in your body, it's kinda like you can't really rein them in as easy, it's kind of a big thing is kind of preventing that release, so, it's definitely helpful in that situation, and, I'm really grateful just for the access to modern medicine. I think it's something I've really come to appreciate. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, it's something really crazy just to think about that, you know, I can just go into my cupboard and say, "Okay, I need Zyrtec," or "I need" whatever, and I can get it, but I know that's not something a lot of people have that luxury of, and that's something I try never to take for granted.
Totally.
And so around that same time, I had kind of developed a lot of stomach pain after eating. We kind of never knew why. Did the whole shower workup, everything came back clean, and we kind of had deduced it to IBS, which I was like, okay, probably not valid, but some meds are working, so I'm not really gonna fight that. We're just gonna kind of roll with it, kind of deal with it. But around 3 months ago, it was like the point of no return. It was awful. I really wasn't eating anything. I was actually at a treatment clinic in Arkansas. Um, Super random place. I was at the Sparrow Clinic for my CRPS, and it was really improving. And it was kind of a little bit of a really hard blow to take because I said okay, I'm getting better. Like I'm starting to be able to wear socks again. I'm starting to do all these things, but now I can't eat, and I don't have the energy to even show up to these therapies to do it. So I ended up getting really severely malnourished, and I think it was probably one of the scariest times of my life, just kind of feeling this it's almost like everything inside you is just being sucked away. And it was really,
Mm.
really terrifying. And not only that, just kind of not knowing what was going on, going to 3 different doctors every week and doing 500 tests and everything coming back clean. I was like, what's going on? Something's not right here.
Right.
We ended up landing upon a surgeon in Connecticut. I'm from New York. So and he's a world-renowned surgeon who treats median arcuate ligament syndrome, and he figured out that that's really what's going on. and that's why I couldn't eat, and why I had so much pain when I was breathing, and why exercise was so painful, breathing wise. I never understood why.
What was it called?
So median arcuate ligament syndrome. So essentially, the diaphragm is too low, and you have this ligament, which is the median arcuate ligament, that kind of comes off the diaphragm. And so because it sits low, it crushes the celiac artery. Everything's kind of
Oh,
low and it's kind of out of its place. So it causes this like chronic irritation of this area. All these nerves are inflamed. May or may not be a blood flow issue. Kind of depends. So I'm having surgery in 18 days. It's a huge surgery, and they're gonna take those nerves out, take that ligament out, clean up the diaphragm, kind of do a little makeover in there.
yeah.
um, and it's a pretty major surgery. It's like a 6 to 12 month full recovery, but that should be how I can eat again. So it's pretty exciting and terrifying in the same way. I'm honestly excited just to kind of have a chance at life 2.0.
Totally. Yeah. Especially after 3 years of not really being able to eat what you would like, right? It's been about three
Yeah,
years.
yeah. So it's really exciting, and I think, quite frankly, a lot of it's a mental thing. Just kind of getting your head in the right place to, you go into the surgery knowing like it's gonna suck after, but you have to kind of keep your head up and say like, okay, this is gonna suck, but like it's gonna be worth it. And it's kind of a strange thing to kind of manage that like those nerves mixed with like that excitement and just kind of like that hope, and it's so crazy.
So they think that was caused by the mouths or
Yeah, that's what they think all this, like, stomach pain is, and, a lot of, like, my
uh,
dizziness that I struggle with, we think that could be from the malls too, and we're kind of thinking it could all be connected with the whole CRPS, 'cause it's all kind of this nervous system wackiness, all kinda
wow.
related to the nerves, but we'll see what kinda gets better, if the dizziness gets better post-op, kind of what things look like.
And the CRPS, is that genetic or was it really just that you hurt your ankle and then it just sparked into something severe?
So they don't know if it's genetic. That's the interesting thing. It's a kind of I don't know up and coming, but it's kind of one of those under-researched things. And I think there's a lot of
Mm,
people out there suffering with it that don't know. They kind of might have a diagnosis of something else, and they don't know if it's genetic. I think there has to be some type of genetic disposition because it's like 1 in 500,000 people. And look how many people sprain their ankle every day and end up recovering fine after 6 weeks. So why is it this 1 in 500,000 get this constant pain signals being sent, and then you have this swelling, and you have this severe sensitivity to touch, and you have this muscle wasting, and people lose their ability to walk, and why is it that some people's nervous system just can't deal with it? It's really fascinating to think about like why so many people get it.
yeah. Yeah, that is really interesting.
Yeah,
And the rest of your family doesn't have anything similar to this in their bloodline or anything like that?
I'm adopted, so we don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We don't know, and I think that it would be interesting to see just kind of if there is some type of genetic component.
Anything to do with nerves or anything like that? Yeah.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
it really just blows my mind that, have all these rare conditions, and the thing with malls is, like, 15% or something of the population has this anatomy of the low diaphragm, and they
Hmm.
have the compression, but only 1% will have the symptoms and the pain and the inability to eat and, and need the surgery and even know they have it. So I just think it's really kind of fascinating to think about why it affects me. I think it's really kinda cool.
Yeah, and even if you did find out that it was genetic or something, sometimes that's not even really the answer. I don't know, sometimes they won't even dive into the reasons why. They're just like, "Well, we're just dealing with this."
Yeah, and I kind of feel a little bit like ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
You know, like the more you don't know, kind of you can't really freak out about the unknown because you don't know what you don't know.
totally, and it is a little bit of, like, letting go of the past, like, you're in a new space and, like, getting a chronic illness or getting something where you feel so different, you have to sorta let go of the past, so whatever caused it is sort of irrelevant, whatever happened, happened, and now I'm here, so I might as well just focus on how to fix it, and, like, who cares what happened in the past to get me to this spot because I'm just here, you know?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is kind of this acceptance. But I think acceptance in the sense that I am chronically ill. It is a
Mhm.
struggle for me to kind of exist in 10 out of 10 pain every day and to not be able to eat and to have to look for these major surgeries. But I think a lot of it is accepting that, that might be your situation, but not staying there. Not saying, I'm in this pain, but I'm going to stay there because there's no hope. And I think that's kind of a really important differentiation to make.
Right.
So I think just kind of focusing on this idea that, like, I don't have to like it, but I have to work on acknowledging that this is part of my life.
Right. Yeah, and taking steps to make it better, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just finding things that you can do. Like for me, I can't eat, that's why I have a feeding tube, but I love to bake. And to me, to bake bread for my family, and like that is something fun I can still do. And it
Yeah.
brings me joy. And to kind of lean into those things, I think it kind of helps give hope for a better tomorrow for hopefully, post MALS surgery and I'll get my tube out and I'll be, eating and chilling and doing the whole thing with them.
Yeah, totally. So, with your feeding tube, did you get that because they thought it was Crohn's originally, or is that typical for a MALS patient?
It's fairly typical. I would say it's more common than not because the main symptom is often, you have pain after eating to the point where, it leads to severe malnourishment. Like I had zero protein intake for 3 months, and it was
Wow.
just really kind of terrifying because I didn't really know what was going to happen. There was no kind of hope in sight at that point. And so it was more of a this is going to go south quickly if we don't kind of take care of this soon. And it's really common in MALS patients because you have this irritation whenever you eat. And they actually compare it to like stage 4 pancreatic cancer pain, the pain after you
Oh,
eat. So it's definitely understandable as to why, it can lead to such severe malnourishment. And then ideally post op, people are able to eat better, if they have a successful surgery and kind of depending on what other GI things they have going on, if they have, a gastroparesis or they have Crohn's, it might not be as linear of a journey. But I think it's something that I found that people often just look forward to not having that MALS pain, regardless if you're eating or not, regardless if you have other conditions. I think there is a sense of kind of, at least for me, I know I'm not going to be pain free of everything. I'm still going to have other chronic illness, but just having that hope that like the MALS pain that's constantly there will be gone. And I think it's one of those things that if you could kind of know just how severe that pain is, you'd know why it's worth to go through such a major surgery, kind of not knowing what the outcome's going to be.
yeah, absolutely. Do they give you a sort of one of those percentages of success rates or something like that when you go in?
Yeah, so kind of every surgeon's different. I met with a couple surgeons before I picked mine just 'cause I really wanted to make the right decision. My surgeon's is 92%. And they don't know why the 8% kind of don't get that relief because he said if I did, I wouldn't operate on those patients, but I don't know. But
Mm,
I've heard from some other surgeons it's only 80%. So I think a lot of it depends on kind of what the surgeon does within the surgery. If they take out the nerves, if they, kind of if they do it by laparoscopic or if they do it in open surgery, a lot of it is kind of it's not a cut and dried, this is how we do MAL surgery. It kind of depends on the surgeon and how they think is the best way to address it.
mhm. And how did you find this surgery?
So I was looking through Instagram, and there's this business, and they kind of have this really cute chronic illness apparel. They're called Spoonie Sister Shop, and they'll feature some people if they, wearing their apparel, like and sharing their story. They'll feature them. And there was a girl who she was featured, and I just kind of clicked on her profile, and I also saw that she was Catholic. I was like, oh my goodness, another chronically ill person who's Catholic. I need to follow her, and just kind of connect with her. And she has malls, and she had surgery, and kind of some other people who I had followed who have CRPS or just some other issues that I had found had this malls. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to them. And I said, these are my symptoms. And I explained probably the weirdest explanation. I was like, it feels like an elephant's on my chest, but there's a flaming rock right by my sternum. And I don't really know. And if I can breathe, but, and it's like this whole, like, when I exercise, it gets worse, but eating is really the worst. But it just feels like there's an elephant and a rock in my chest. Like that sounds exactly like my malls pain. I was
Wow.
like, "Okay, I need to kinda really explore this possibility," and, it's really rare, so it's a lot of kind of advocating to GI doctors. I went through, like, 3 GI doctors, 2 surgeons, a primary care doctor of them saying, "We don't know." And I
Mm,
was like, "Can we just look into this? 'Cause I think I match these symptoms perfectly." And, we had kind of found some Facebook groups that had info about malls and, people who had surgery and just kind of these really great support networks. And through them, we found Dr. Sue, who's done over 500 of these. He's kind of, we call him Einstein. And we just kind of got in with him, and he did a celiac plexus block where they go in and they block that bundle. They go in through your back and they block that nerve bundle. And if you can kind of exist and eat and breathe and do whatever without that malls pain, that's indicative of what life would be like when you're post op because those nerves will be removed. So I did
Wow.
that, and once that was successful and I had some wings and some Chick-fil-A fries after the block, and it was incredible. Um, One of the best days of my life, super, super hopeful. And then at that point, he says, "If you want this to be gone, I can put you on the list of my war schedule," and it kinda just went from there, and here we are now.
Cool. How did you decide what you were gonna eat in that time frame? Were you just craving it, or were you, like, consciously planning out what you're gonna eat?
I definitely consciously planned it. I was really kind of like, "What do I want?" I would be like, "Oh, I could have ice cream, or I could have," I was kinda, like, going through this list, and I was like, "I want wings." So the night before, the block, we went to a local pizza shop before we drove to Connecticut. We got the wings, and we brought them to the hospital, and the whole entire interventional radiology department smelled like chicken wings.
I'm so glad you were able to do that, and then that means, maybe the surgery too, since it was like a mini test almost.
Yeah.
That's cool that they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually am drafting my post-op food list right now. All the things I wanna eat, I'm gonna, like, check them off, so that's in the works right now, which
Oh,
is
that's so
really just, like,
fun.
exciting. Yeah.
Oh, good for you. I'm so glad that you were able to do that by, like, searching through and making sure that you found the right surgeon for you and everything like that. Because that's a lot to do too, especially for someone that is going through all this pain all the time. Did you have someone that was there to help you with that?
Yeah. So my mom is, like, my best friend. She's really helpful. She's actually a nurse practitioner, so it's really helpful to kind
Oh,
of
nice.
navigate the medical world and kind of, if she has connections or whatever. I mean, she's a neonatal nurse practitioner, so she's used to the babies, but she does have like her some other kind of nursing training with the adults, and so it's really helpful just kind of to have that kind of support throughout the journey has been really helpful.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
and even just with, like, deciding, talking a lot about, like, I think this surgeon's really the right one because he does this for pain control post-op. What do you think about this? Kinda having someone who's kinda knows that inside perspective is really helpful.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a nurse practitioner as their friend for real.
Yeah, right? Like, it feels safer. Like, I worry, like, okay, if I have an anaphylactic episode and she's home, "Here's the EpiPen, mom.
Right.
You
She
stab
knows
me
what
with
to do.
it."
Right, exactly. She knows what's up. And was she really influential in you volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House, you said, right?
Actually, so she wasn't super influential in that. When I, originally did the pain program in Cleveland Clinic right after I was diagnosed, that's where they recommended we stayed. And
Okay.
so a little bit of spiel about the house. It's a, international organization, and so, it's a place where families of children receiving medical care can stay. I
Cool.
kinda compare it to, like, a family style hotel. Families have their own individual rooms, but they have a big kitchen where everyone can share, and they have someone, people in the community will donate meals. So every night there's a hot meal from a restaurant. You can just hear the announcement that, come down for dinner and, eat in the family room with all the other families. And, they have like at our local house, they have massage therapy students come in and get their training hours on, stressed moms who just need a little bit of massage. And, they'll have
Oh,
like playrooms for young children and support just for the families. And they were really influential just in my experience when I first got sick because I was kind of overwhelmed and I was like, where do I go? And you go and you originally walk into this house in Cleveland. They're all over the country. We walk into the house in Cleveland and like, hi, welcome home. And they give you this tour and they're friendly greeting you, and there might be some visiting service dogs come or visiting therapy dogs to come. It's just this home like atmosphere that you feel like you can go in the kitchen and make your own meal, and you can get to know the families, and it's really just a special place. And just that you know that you're not alone kind of on your journey to healing. And so over time, kind of in different places where we have gone for treatment, when we went to Rhode Island, we stayed at Ronald McDonald House there. And I saw that there was this opportunity to serve at the Ronald McDonald House on the youth advisory board. So it was high school age people, kind of working to spread awareness for volunteerism and for the mission of the house and for helping others. And I was so drawn to this because I know what it's like to kind of be in the shoes of these families. And I know what
yeah.
it's like just to see someone like, hey, here's a cookie. Hey, have a nice day. Oh my goodness, like your baby's so cute. I hope she's doing better. Like just that kind of, I wanted to be able to give back to an organization that gave me so much. And we did some pretty amazing things with the youth board, even just like making tacos on Cinco de Mayo and putting them out for the family. So just really fun things and kind of working as a team. It taught me a lot about giving your own talents to the group and everyone kind of giving their own and then this beautiful, fruitful final product.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I never really knew what the Ronald McDonald House did, but it's really cool to hear that they give such a warm welcome to people that are going through these tough times.
Yeah, absolutely. So next time when you go and get your Shamrock Shake and March, and they say like, "You want to round up 10 cents for the house?" You can think of this.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And you actually, as a patient, get to stay there as well, or is it just your family?
No, so the patients can stay there.
Oh,
Yeah, if the patients, if they're inpatient, sometimes they actually have like floors or kind of more family rooms in the hospital as well that are kind of a
wow.
place of refuge. But then the children can also stay at the house too, which is really awesome.
That's so cool. What is the age range for people staying there?
I believe it's up to 21.
Okay, yeah. I wish that there was something like that for people right after 21 and into like 30 or something like that because it does feel like such a letdown. I was 22 when I got first diagnosed, and they would explain all these fun things that pediatric care was doing, and then I'd be like, "Can I go in?" And be like, "No." Like,
Yeah, no, for
yeah.
sure. And I think, it's really important to kind of realize that, I feel like there's kind of this unwritten stigma that, like, you can't be afraid of needles if you're not a young kid anymore. You can't be
Right.
intimidated by hospitals if you're not a young kid anymore. And I kind of think ending that stigma of you don't have to be ashamed of your hesitancy or discomfort just because you're not a young kid.
Exactly. And I just think that, I don't know, eventually there has to be better programming for people that are 21 and up because it's not, they just completely treat you like a old person at that point. And it's like, I'm not old. I'm in my early 20s. Like, I just can't come to terms with what's going on. And they sort of are just like, well, you're an adult. See ya. Like,
Totally, and I think it messes with your head a lot because it makes you feel like, "Maybe I am not taking this the right way. Maybe I am too upset about this," and I think, it kind of can make your brain play tricks on you a little bit.
yeah, definitely. But I'm so glad that you were able to go and volunteer there too. That's really cool after you got better. Would you like to continue to do something like that?
Absolutely, I think the Ronald McDonald House will always be part of me. Actually, I wrote my college essay on the house,
Oh, I love that.
and kind of just what kind of it was like being a patient and a volunteer and kind of seeing both sides of the coin in that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, when you're going through these moments of trying to figure out what you're going to do next and like going to college and things like this, is there anything that you ever wanted to do that you couldn't do because of your chronic illness?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in that season right now. Kinda
Yeah.
funny you say that. So I was supposed to start college in the fall, so last semester, and my CRPS was just not in a place. It had been kind of the worst it was in years, just really flared up. I spent all of last summer really, trying everything from ketamine infusions to multiple pain programs to living at the physical therapy office basically, and nothing was getting better. And I was like, how can I realistically go to school when I can't even walk a mile without being in bed for weeks? Like,
Right.
how is that realistically possible? But I kind of blew it off. I was like, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. The next thing's gonna work, like whatever. And actually, 48 hours before I was supposed to move in, we had found this Sparrow clinic and they offered me a spot 2 weeks later. But it would mean I would have to miss the first semester of school. And it was
Mm,
this really heavy decision because I was like, I had this opportunity right here. I can just grab it and go and take it. Or I can just try and pretend like I'm normal and that I can really do this even though I really can't and go to school.
yeah.
And so 48 hours before I was supposed to leave, my mom came home from work one day. I said, Mom, I want to go. I'm going to Arkansas. I said, I can't do school right now. It is going to be a disaster. The pandemic is raging. It's not a good time to go. I need to get my health in check first because I'm going to end up suffering and leaving halfway through the semester anyway. So I ended up doing that. And then I was supposed to start school the second semester, but my treatment in Arkansas took longer. And then, you know, everything with my stomach kind of hit and malnourishment and the malls and now with surgery coming, it actually kind of is a blessing in disguise. I can kind of see how it was really purposeful that it happened like this because that would happen when I was at school. I don't know what I would have done. I mean, now I
Yeah.
have enough time that I can have 5 months post-op and start in the fall. And I already have found a roommate. She's absolutely incredible, and it's been a really non-linear journey because I was really upset at first. I'd made all these friends who I was supposed to start school with, and I was like, okay, what now? Like, why is it that it's taken away from me? and it was really hard at first. Social media was a very dark, my personal social media account was really hard because I would see these people that I just couldn't connect to. I was just in a totally different place. Then I eventually kind of learned that, like, there were so many other people who also were in these small support groups, other people who deal with chronic illness didn't know where I was. And I think one of the biggest fruits that's kind of come out of this time is realizing the power of those connections, and like the power that social media has to connect those people that are going through similar things, that even though maybe they're in different states, different kind of, they have different diagnoses, there's so much we have in common.
Absolutely. And those friends are probably going to stay with you for so long because you have such a commonality with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And I think too that I've found that by just reaching out and being proactive about finding people who've had the same experience as me, because
Mhm.
that's the best way to figure out what it's going to be like firsthand experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think health is so stigmatized. It's really hard to come out and tell, healthy, able-bodied people that you are so sick, that you don't eat, that you have a feeding tube, that's how you eat, that you can't go to school because you're in so much pain of wearing socks, and you can barely walk because it causes so much pain. They're like, but you look fine. And I think it's one of those things that it kind of can become exhausting to feel like you have to play a part, and
Hmm.
hide that part of sickness. But I think connecting with those people who also deal with it, it's like you can just be yourself, and you don't feel like you have to hide yourself because you can't be stigmatized, because everyone just gets that kind of struggle of what that experience is like.
Right. And I feel like being honest with people that don't understand or don't have a chronic illness or know anyone with chronic illness, they just sort of give you like this pity party.
Yes,
And it's just
absolutely.
like the poor you sort of look, and then they just don't know what to say, or they like change the subject, or they say like, I have breathing problems too sometimes, and you're like, it's not the same.
Yeah, right? Like my inability to eat because of malls is not the same as that stomach flu you had when you had a bad apple in 3rd grade.
Right, exactly. Like I'm just gonna say it's definitely a lot different.
Yeah, and I find it a lot. I'm really involved in my faith and in my church, and kind of within those kind of circles. And I found it's really interesting to share it with that community, because especially people who don't intimately know you, within the social media community, and you tell them that, and they're like, "Oh, but like God's gonna heal you," or this kind of like, "Well, let me pray for you," and it really kind of bothers me. And no one from my church has personally come and said that, because they all know me and they know me well. But that's just not kind of what I like, and it's not appropriate. But I think it is a common thing that a lot of that happens so often in those religious circles, is that, you know what I mean. You feel this like pressure to that you won't fit in until you're healed, if you will,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
and, and that you won't kind of be whole until you're healed. And I think it totally completely misses the mark, in the sense that, like, I believe there's so much value, like, in suffering. You can learn so much, and some people just are working to accept that, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think those kind of comments about, that you're not as whole of a person, or can I pray for you? Like, yeah, you can pray for me, but you can pray for a lot of other things that are going on in my life than this. And I just think kind of being aware that some people, like, are content. Like, they're working on accepting their illness, and they are fighting their hardest battle, and having to fight the battle of people who can't see them as a whole person because of their illness is so, so exhausting.
Yeah, it's draining.
Yeah.
And I think that it does sound like, I don't know, like they're pushing it off. Like, well, I'll just pray for you. And then like your other concerns really don't concern me because I'm praying for you. So it's just like I said my piece basically and now we're
Yeah.
done. A lot of people are so they don't know what else to say, I feel like. So they are trying to give what they can. And in that moment, it might be prayer for them or it might be, I don't know, a plate of food or whatever. People give in their own ways, but I think you're right that it feels ingenuine almost sometimes because it's just like, well, get back to me when you feel better because I'm praying for you or something.
Yeah, and I do, to that extent, I think that a lot of it depends on the audience. I think if it is said in a gaslighting way, I do think prayer is powerful, but I think being respectful about how you share that is so critical on the able-bodied person in the situation. Like, I have some really, really close friends that say, we're really just praying for a successful surgery, and it doesn't bother me. Or like we
Right.
pray for you every day. Like, that doesn't bother me, because I know it comes from a place of like they want the best for me. But if someone, gives you a plate of food or just says, "Oh, but you're sick and I'm just going to pray for you because I don't want to talk to you until you're healthy." I think that is kind of using those acts of kindness almost as a weapon to kind of stigmatize and isolate.
Did you ever get the sort of feeling that people thought you did something to deserve what you got? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Personally never had that experience because I was so, like, very close with people in my church, and they all knew my journey. And, even just in general, I didn't really get that feeling. If anything, I would just experience that late at night when my mind was trying to play that trick on me, but I didn't ever feel like someone made me feel like I kind of did something to deserve this. I never really felt that way.
that's good.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I've heard that people with chronic illness have been told, like, maybe if you were a better person, basically, that this wouldn't
Mhm,
have happened to you. And, that's just terrible. Nothing with chronic illness is because of anything that you've done.
mhm.
Just sort of comes about in its own sort of way. But I'm glad that you've never had to feel anything like that because it's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think a lot of it kinda comes from the spiritual work I put in to kind of work on this idea that, like, that I am loved as I am, and kind of really working to believe that, and to see
Yeah.
myself as that, and to not see myself as incomplete or as broken or as, in the sense that, like, unfixable, because I think we're all broken in our own ways. We're all, whether we deal with chronic illness, whether we deal with mental illness, whether it's whatever that every person's kind of personal battle may be. I think there's power in that because there's not many things that all of the world shares, right? Like we all like have our own unique experiences, but I think one thing that kind of connects us all is the fact that we know pain, we know suffering, and we know what it's like to hurt and feel lost and be lonely. And I think if we can kind of turn the conversation from we're going to avoid that to let's see how you got through it and maybe it would help me, I think our world would just be in a better place.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it is, you're right, because so many people are going through something that you have no idea what it's about.
Right.
Suffering is something that everyone knows about, but getting through that suffering is what a lot of people don't know about, how
Yeah.
they got to the next step and how they overcame, because some people are unfortunately unable to overcome some circumstances that others look at them and they're like, "Well, it's so easy. Why is it hard for you?" But they don't
Right.
understand the severity or the differences between each other. But you're right, that talking through and talking about how you overcame could help anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's kind of one of those ways that the world can look at disability and chronic illness in a greater light, in the sense that maybe overcoming isn't necessarily, coming out of a wheelchair and walking, but maybe overcoming is looks different for everyone. And I think sharing like each person's personal testimony of what they've overcome can kind of bring to light the beauty and diversity of everyone's stories and everyone's personal life experiences and everyone's beautiful journeys.
Absolutely, I definitely agree. Was
Yeah.
there any, were there any ableist cures that you've heard that were sort of really out of left field?
Yeah. One of my doctors kind of, I'm not sure what word to use, but she kind of, I felt like I was her guinea pig.
Oh.
And I remember there was this one kind of wacky cure she wanted me to try, and I was like, "No, that is, like, just too much." And she said, "No, no, no, but it's helped people." And we had to, go through this whole process to get it approved and submit documentation and do all this kind of work, and I never was really thrilled on it, but I was like, "No, if it's gonna, like, help me, I'm
Right.
not really thrilled about it, but you seem to say it's perfect." And I said, "You told me it's not gonna cause nausea, it's not gonna make me dizzy. So you've told me that there's no reason, but I'm not wanting to." But, I was kind of in this sense of like oblivion almost. And looking back, I should have just listened to my gut. And so I tried it and I took the medicine for 2 days. And I said, "Mom, this is the sickest I felt in years." I said, "I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I feel like I'm going to throw up. This sucks."
Oh my
And
gosh.
I walked back into my appointment with this physician a couple weeks later, and I said, it lasted about 1.5 days. And I told her, she goes, "Oh yeah, I didn't want to tell you that I thought I could do that."
Oh my gosh.
And I
What?
was like, "Say what?"
You didn't want to tell me something about the thing I was putting in my body?
Yeah. So I
Wow.
guess it's not really an ableist cure, but I feel like her behavior was ableist in the sense that I was kind of subject to her opinion of what she thought.
Yeah. Oh, that's annoying. And you're right, trusting your gut is hard in the moment sometimes, but looking back, you're always like, I should have listened to myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then she's like, "Well, why don't you try this?" I'm like, "Well, that actually is against my religion and my beliefs, so I'm not going to participate in that." Like
Whoa, what
other
was
thing.
it?
What was it? Oh gosh. Something with like spirits and like this kind of like
Oh, like Reiki or something?
something ish like
Weird.
that.
The doctor said that?
Yeah, I don't something like that. And it was this kind of interesting moment. And she's like, "Oh, you're not willing to do anything to get better?" Like I felt like that was kind of the attitude I was given. And I was like, I'm not going to sacrifice my personal kind of I'm not here to cast judgment on anyone who chooses a treatment. That was just my personal conviction and my kind of personal
Yeah.
wishes for my treatment. And it was really interesting because I was like, no, no,
Yeah.
that's not something I'm interested in. And I think it was really kind of like, oh, okay.
Good.
Oh.
Oh
Which was
man.
interesting. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm glad that you were upfront about that. And especially if it's crossing some sort of line about your spirituality, like that should not even be something that she's offering if it could even be something that would cross the line, you know?
Yeah, and I think, it's eh, I found often in looking back at my journey that there have been times that I should have been like, in a way I was not so brainwashed, but so desperate I lost my sense of my compass of what I really wanted. And it's
Yeah.
something kind of looking back, I was like, that was so stupid that I didn't listen to my gut and, pre-medicate before I did this treatment when I know it made me sick every time, but I was told I needed to trust my body. Like, no, I don't trust my
Mm.
body. It goes in partial anaphylaxis every time that
Yeah,
I do this. But no, I won't take Benadryl because I'm gonna trust my body. Looking back, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, that
right.
was so incredibly stupid. Like, um,
Well, it's not stupid. You are blinded and you want to like believe the doctor and you want to trust your body. You would love to, but at the end of the day, you can only trust it so much because it's
right.
tricky.
It's so tricky, and I think that just I think chronic illness really kind of causes you to have an interesting kind of relationship with your body and with yourself because, you have to love, you ideally you work on loving this body, but you can be frustrated with a body that doesn't work the way you'd like it to, or, has more needs than what you'd like it to, or doesn't let you eat the food you love, or, whatever. And I think it's such a hard journey to see yourself as like loved and beautiful and worthy, like as you are.
Yeah. But you are beautiful and worthy of every sort of cure, every sort of treatment that you can get that is right for you because you're a human and that's what we're
Yeah.
here to do. That's what doctors are here to do. And, it's just a journey, like you said.
Yeah. And I think, you know, looking back on my 3 years, I kinda approached my 3-year, like, initial diagnosis anniversary, whatever you wish to call it. I wish I would've like, I think looking back, I would've told myself, like, you know, it's such a nonlinear journey. I don't think I ever would've kind of anticipated it to be such.
Mm.
With the highs and the lows of, people coming in and out because they can't support your illness, or, people who you find that are just these gems that are amazing, and these doctors that are amazing in these times where, you'll feel like everything's like you get one thing taken care for and something else kind of falls apart. And I think it's something that I never would have anticipated.
Absolutely. And through all of that, do you find that you can still be positive about your outlook and what's to come for the future of your chronic illnesses?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of that comes from perspective. Not setting unrealistic expectations for myself. And I've personally found, we always hear about like set goals and reach your goals and da da da. I am not a goal setter at all because most of the time if my body doesn't allow me to set a goal, then I'm just going to be disappointed in myself. So I will just kind of use that sense of being positive in the sense of like, I want to go to college, and I will go to college when my body's ready.
Mm-hmm.
And God willing, that will come in the fall. And kind of having that. And I think keeping in perspective, like, that I am not able-bodied. And that for some people, a good workout might be running a marathon. And for me, it might be spending an hour at the gym. Like, and just or whatever it may be. And that might look different every day. And I think a lot of staying positive comes from trying to find things that I can still enjoy. And making time for those things, having something every day to look forward to. Be it, I'm going to sit outside and read a book and I'm excited for that. I'm going to wear my favorite shirt, or I'm going to, go for whatever it may be, is super helpful for me because it helps me to kind of find some good in every day, even if my body isn't really interested in finding something good every day.
Yeah.
And kind of combating those kind of, desires to kind of isolate, and it helps me to kind of have something to look forward to.
Well, that's awesome. And I really think that you staying positive in your own way and just looking forward to something bright in your day is a really cool takeaway from this. And I really hope that this surgery is something that will help you.
Thank you so much. I am so excited. It's
Yeah.
exciting things to come.
Top 5 things that you're gonna get when you first can eat.
Oh, I definitely want some pad Thai. I love Thai
Oh,
food.
yes.
Definitely want some more Chick-fil-A fries. That's super good. Um, Definitely want some type of like gluten-free cupcake or so like a brownie or something nice like that. Definitely some ice cream, and probably like cucumbers and bell peppers are like my favorites.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, well, I'm gonna send you all of the love, and I really appreciate you coming on again. Thank you again, Shannon.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this opportunity. It was so awesome to chat.
Yeah, and good luck 18 days from now. I hope that your post-op is real quick and easy and you can get to school.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited and hopeful too.
What a sweetie pie. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for coming on the show, for reaching out. If anyone else ever wants to reach out to be part of Still Positive, email is in the show notes. Thank you again to Shannon. I'm so happy that you were able to come on and share with us your experience. I loved that she specifically asked to touch on ableism within spirituality, and I was happy that she wanted to bring that up because it is something that I've experienced in my time being chronically ill, and it is something that people don't talk about a lot. Just this sort of thought that praying someone's illness away is something that works for everyone. Everyone has their own choices and decisions and spirituality, and I think that it was really cool that she wanted to touch on that, being someone of the Christian faith. I just wanted to commend her for being really strong in that aspect and wanting to talk about it, because not a lot of people would. So thank you again. Make sure to tune in next week for another great episode of Still Positive, sponsored by me. And I hope that you have a great rest of your week. Keep it going. Stay sick. Make sure to eat your sugar. And I'll talk to you next week.